Hello, and welcome to another episode of Corner 3. This is Casey Coggins, as always. And yes, I pretty much did the same intro that I do for the Benchwarmers podcast, but sue me. Today, I'm going to talk about a bad team. A very bad team. And that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. And let me just preface this episode by saying I haven't seen a single game of theirs all season. They should. The way that their team is built and the way that their season has gone, I don't think even Cavs fans should be watching this team. And so you hear that and you might say, well, Casey, how are you going to talk about them if you haven't actually watched them play? I'm not going to actually talk about the gameplay per se. I'm going to be talking about their roster, the moves they made, the drama, a lot of the off-the-court stuff. Because when you understand basketball and you've watched it enough, you can hear the rumors, you can listen to the news, you can hear all the drama, you could look at the roster and piece together, this team is in shambles and they aren't going to win many games. So let me first start by talking about John Beilein getting let go / mutually parting ways, that whole situation that happened. John Beilein is a fantastic coach. He knows basketball. He is extremely smart when it comes to making guys better in a certain, I guess, scheme would be the best word to use for this. What he was able to do at Michigan over the last 7 years is a couple Final Fours, a national championship game appearance, constantly winning and being competitive year in and year out, and his players ended up in the NBA. But we all know that there's a big difference between being a college coach in any sport and a professional coach. One of the main reasons is when you're a professional coach, you are coaching adults who are getting paid to do this. It is a job to them. It is their livelihood. Without the game, they would have to rely on their degree in college and their experience in working, which a lot of them don't have. It's the NBA, and then they go on and use their status from the NBA to do other things. Now, that might be owning their own restaurant or talking on The Jump on ESPN, but they at least get to use the leverage of being an NBA player to their advantage. When John Beilein got hired, if you listen to Ryan Russillo, he's been on it for the last couple weeks that he had been told that was just, everybody just was off of him immediately. And hearing that made me think, it's not surprising, because when a coach comes in and he expects to input the system of practicing, of playing, of being held accountable, and the players aren't used to it, the players tend to revolt. The players tend to say, who is this guy coming in here telling us what to do? Think of it like the Chicago Bulls from earlier this season when they were having issues with the time card, punching in and out of work. It's similar to me like what happened with it happened with the Detroit Lions in football. Matt Patricia came in and he tried to be really tough on everybody, and B, he tried to be Belichick, and it seemed to not really work. I think he's kind of found his footing for the most part, not getting into that. But the John Beilein thing, from the get-go, I'm not surprised it didn't work. You have Kevin Love, who is an NBA Finals winner, a 4-time NBA Finals competitor, has been on Team USA, has been All-NBA, has been one of the top guys in the league for the last 15 years. But then you have him, and you're pairing him with two extremely young guards who haven't got their footing in the league. And then you have Tristan Thompson, who was playing out of his mind this year. But you don't have a small forward. You have essentially a clash of ideologies of how the roster's built between these big guys who have been really good and pivotal for really good teams in the past, and these young guys who haven't won a thing. In Darius Garland, who they picked with, I believe, the number 4 pick this year, he didn't even play a college game. And not to say Darius Garland is this guy, but that just reminds me of when they drafted Kyrie. Kyrie barely played at Duke, had the injury, got drafted number 1 overall, and did not lead to wins in Cleveland. There was a tweet that I saw about Kyrie Irving, his years without LeBron James and his records, and I think he's only won, he'd won like 20 games twice without LeBron James in 6 seasons. And it just seems like the Cavs without LeBron since 2003 are just a chicken with their head cut off. I really like Darius Garland and his potential. I like Kevin Love and what he's been able to turn into. I like Tristan Thompson and the skills that he can provide. I like Colin Sexton a lot. I was really high on Colin Sexton coming out of Alabama. I like some of the pieces there, but when you have the pieces, but you don't have chemistry, you don't have a system, the coach isn't able to get these guys to just play together, it doesn't work. It doesn't. And they had Jordan Clarkson, and they traded him to Utah. They just traded for Andre Drummond. For whatever reason, they're refusing to buy out Tristan Thompson. And like with some other franchises and their rosters, for instance, the New York Knicks, there's one guy, maybe 2 guys on the roster that you just say, look, we drafted you high, we believe in you still, you're our guy, and then everybody else, blow it up. Gone. Get rid of them however you can that doesn't hurt your potential. Now, if it's buying out Tristan Thompson, that saves you cap space. You didn't trade him. You possibly could have. I didn't really see much what they would have gotten back for him, if they would have gotten anything, if anybody was actually trying to trade for him, or if a lot of teams were like, we'd love to have Tristan Thompson, but we don't want to give you any assets. We don't have any assets to give you, so we're just going to expect you to buy him out because he's not going to do you any good. Kevin Love should have been traded. Trading for Andre Drummond, I don't get it. I don't get any of the things that they're doing outside of drafting Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. But even then, those guys are probably best suited to not play in the same backcourt. Unless they somehow can turn into Dame and CJ McCollum, But even with Dame and CJ McCollum, how many times have you heard you need to trade one of those guys? Trade one of those guys, pair him with so-and-so big, so-and-so small forward, so-and-so, like, it's for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been trade CJ McCollum or trade Damian Lillard. It's been trade one of those guys, because those two guys in the same backcourt it just doesn't work in the NBA. And I agree with that idea. Maybe not to the extent of trading like with Dame and CJ, because I feel that if Portland was to have a quality small forward player, if you listen to my the last Benchwarmers podcast, and you heard me talk about Jimmy Butler, you know that I like Jimmy Butler and he's really good, but he's not the best player on the finals team. So put Jimmy Butler on this Portland team, and I think they could compete for at least, they can get to the Western Conference Finals again. But as they're currently constructed, they can't. And Cleveland has that same issue. Is who are you putting out on the court? Like, you have Colin Sexton, like I said, Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, Darius Garland, Tristan Thompson, Chetty Osman, Nance Jr.'s been hurt. You have Kevin Porter Jr., who's another rookie, Dante Exum. It's just, they still have Matthew Dellavedova, but he's old. Like, the way that they've put together this roster is, I don't even know a good metaphor for it. It's like a blind guy throwing darts, I guess. It's, well, we think this guy's talented, so let's go ahead and get him. And it's one thing to draft the most talented guy. It's one thing to sign or trade for the most talented guy. But in the NBA, more than any other sport, because the 5 guys on the court, each one of those guys impacts the game in ways that it just doesn't work in the NFL or the MLB. Like, hockey would be the same way. If you had one of the 5 guys on the ice in hockey that just didn't get along with anybody, or like if you had a couple guys that just don't really fit the same kind of role, you just don't win. If you have 5 defenders out there, you don't win. You have to have a good mixture of defenders, forwards. You have to be able to mesh on the court, on the ice. And this roster just doesn't seem to really mesh. There's no method to the madness, it seems. You draft the talented guy. Got it. Okay. Instead of saying, okay, well, let's just draft the talented guy again, I think you have to look at the roster. You have the 4th pick. You're like, okay, well, we have Colin Sexton, we have Tristan Thompson, we have Kevin Love. Those are essentially our big 3. They had Jordan Clarkson, they have Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr., I believe, has been hurt most of the season, hasn't been playing all that much. And then they end up trading Jordan Clarkson. But this is before the season started. Before the season started and you're about to draft Darius Garland, you look at your roster and say, what is our idea? Where are we going? What is the philosophy that this team is going to have? The Spurs have a philosophy. It's not working right now, but they at least have a philosophy. I don't know how many times I have to say I believe in the Spurs' talent. It just comes down to the right guys playing on the court together. The rotation is screwed up. Not the talent, not the philosophy. The Lakers, they have the talent, they have the philosophy. They're the number 1 seed in the West. Houston, they definitely have a philosophy, and they've built their roster entirely around it, and they've gotten even more drastic about building around it. What is Cleveland's philosophy? What are they trying to do? Since they signed or hired David Blatt, I believe they've had 6 coaches since then, and that's 6 coaches in 7 years. And they just got rid of Beeline, like I said. JB Bickerstaff is the interim coach, and this is the 3rd time he's been an interim coach. So I guess to transition to why I'm talking about them. They're the worst team in the Eastern Conference. They are the 2nd worst team. Let me double check just to be clear. The 2nd worst team in the league. They're going to have a top 4 pick. Now, not a great draft to have a top 5 pick or a lottery pick. So what can you do? Well, honestly, I would shop the pick. Whatever they end up doing, shop it. Don't draft LaMelo Ball. Don't draft James Wiseman. Don't draft the foreign guy that the name is spacing on me, who might be Luka, but doesn't necessarily have the same track record that Luka did. There's not a guy in this draft there's no Zion, there's no Ja Morant, there's no LeBron James. So see if you can't get some nibbles on trading for a lower first this year and maybe getting a first next year. Like, you have to just say this season obviously isn't working. Next season with this roster obviously is not going to work. So make your 5-year plan. Like any business asks in an interview, or when you have to give financial statements, the big thing is, what is your 5-year plan? What is Cleveland's 5-year plan? And if I was them, it would be blowing it up. And like I said, I can't talk about the on-court stuff, so I can't really give you an idea of, do I believe in Colin Sexton and Darius Garland being on the court together and building around those 2 guys? But I wouldn't. What you invested in those 2 guys with where you picked them in the draft, you should at least see if you can. You should just try to make it work. And so with those 2 guys as your foundation, get rid of everybody else. Maybe not a couple role guys, maybe not a couple younger bench guys that you have the hopes that they become something, like Kevin Porter, who was supposed to be a steal in this draft because he slipped. So, but everybody else, hell, I know I just said trade out of the pick, but if you're able to get everybody gone in the offseason, that includes Drummond, not Draymond, Andre Drummond, who you just traded for. He's gone. Kevin Love's gone. Tristan Thompson's gone. If you can get rid of them all, draft James Wiseman, pair him up with these young point guards, young shooting guard, and just see what you can do. You might as well just make that your 5-year plan. Like, what else do you have to lose? You're already losing enough as is. So that is my spiel on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I will be back to chit chat with another team. I might be doing a Spurs update pod because they just got blown out by Oklahoma City last night, and it seems like it's getting closer to their playoff hopes being dashed. They had a chance to get within 3 games of Memphis, but if they don't go on a 5-6 game winning streak, it's just not happening for them this year. So I might be doing that soon. And until then, y'all go listen to the Benchwarmers podcast. Go like, subscribe, wherever you listen, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all that. And I'll see you next time.